Oh, ladies and gentlemen, it's This Week in Wrestling History right here on The Value of Wrestling. I'm your host, The Big Time, and we're getting ready to deep dive into This Week in Professional Wrestling History starting on October 13th and working all the way to October 19th. So go ahead, get comfortable, get you something cold to drink, pop that popcorn, sit back, get ready to jump into this time machine as we adventure back in wrestling history, covering some of the great and legendary moments that we all are fond of, that we remember, and some that we may not know about, but we definitely want to learn about. We're going to cover it all right here on this episode of This Week in Wrestling History, starting off with October 13th. Yes, October 13th, going all the way back to 1997. It's Monday Night Raw. Vince McMahon and the Hart Foundation are in the ring conducting an interview when they are interrupted by Shawn Michaels, Triple H, China, and the ravishing one, Rick Rude. This would become the night that these four men would be dubbed, for the first time, D-Generation X. Now, the DX name has been often debated, as Bret Hart claims that New York Post columnist and frequent critic of then WWF, Phil Mushnick, came up with the name when he described the late 90s wrestling fan base, mostly made up of Gen Xers, as degenerates. However, Shawn Michaels in his autobiography claims that then WWF head writer Vince Russo was the one that came up with the name. What do you believe? Who do you think is telling the truth? Where do you think the name came from? Does it even really matter? Because D-Generation X became one of the greatest factions in wrestling history and was a trend setter. They helped change the landscape of professional wrestling, as they were part of what helped bringing in the Attitude Era. So tell us what you think. Drop your comments down below. Join in the conversation. 2008, Batista and Shawn Michaels fought in a lumberjack match on Raw from Anaheim. And then in the main event, Chris Jericho faced CM Punk, with Batista as a special guest referee. Jumping to 2012, for all you Ring of Honor buffs, it's Glory by Honor 11. On Glory by Honor 11, live from Ontario, Canada, Adam Cole would defeat Eddie Edwards to retain the Ring of Honor TV title. Jimmy Jacobs and Steve Corino would defend the Ring of Honor World Tag titles against Them Boys, Jay and Mark Briscoe. And then your main event saw Kevin Steen defend the Ring of Honor World Heavyweight title against one Michael Elgin. Are you a Ring of Honor fan? Did you get to see this amazing event? If not, you might want to go check it out. Moving along, let's talk New Japan Pro Wrestling. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, 2014 King of Pro Wrestling event in Tokyo saw Hiroshi Tanahashi defeat AJ Styles to win the IWGP Heavyweight title for a record-setting 7th time. Yes, Tanahashi defeating the phenomenal AJ Styles to win the IWGP Heavyweight title for a 7th time. That is amazing. Did you get to see this match live? Do you remember that when Tanahashi pinned Styles for that 1-2-3 and was now the new IWGP Heavyweight Champion for a 7th record time? Tell us about it below. Finally, October 13th, 2018, OTT 4th anniversary show from Dublin saw Walter, now known as Gunther, retain his OTT world title against the aerial assassin, Will Ospreay. What a classic match Will Ospreay and Walter would have put on. If you've seen it, that's great. If you haven't, you might want to go check it out. Of course, many are always going to wonder if Walter, now known as Gunther, will ever get the opportunity to tie it up with the aerial assassin again. I guess time will only tell. We'll have to wait and see if we'll ever see Gunther and Will Ospreay tied up in a wrestling ring one more time. October 14th, then we traveled back to 1989, where the 5th non-televised WWF King of the Ring event took place in Providence, Rhode Island. Tino Santana would defeat former tag team partner Rick Martel in the finals to become the King of the Ring. And Dusty Rhodes would defeat the Big Boss Man as they continued their feud that led into that year's Survivor Series. 1995 was a tough year for Shawn Michaels. And if you remember this moment, this would all eventually lead to Shawn Michaels losing his smile. But on October 14th, 1995, then WWE Intercontinental Champion Shawn Michaels was assaulted outside a nightclub in Syracuse, New York. Do you remember hearing this story? Do you remember the events of this night? Do you think Shawn Michaels was faking it? Or if it was true? Tell us what you think. 2002, Yuji Nagata defeated Kazuki Fujita for the IWGP World Heavyweight Championship at New Japan Pro Wrestling, the Spiral event in Tokyo. Were you able to see this match? What did you think of New Japan Pro Wrestling's The Spiral? 2005, Bryan Danielson would retain the Ring of Honor World Heavyweight title against Austin Aries in the main event of Ring of Honor Enter the Dragon. Coming to you from Wilmington, Ohio, Ring of Honor Enter the Dragon saw an amazing undercard as Abyss defeated Jack Evans. Roderick Strong faces Jimmy Yang, and Sal Rinauro and Tony Marmaluke defended the Ring of Honor World Tag titles against BJ Whitmore and Jimmy Jacobs. Were you around? Did you get to see Ring of Honor Enter the Dragon? Well, if not, maybe you need to go check out some great Ring of Honor action, because Bryan Danielson's run of Ring of Honor was purely amazing. 2007, TNA Bound for Glory saw Sting and Kurt Angle tied up for the TNA World Heavyweight title. Of course, Sting would come out victorious. And the undercard was definitely loaded as AJ Styles and Tomko would win the tag team titles from Rashid Lucas, Creed, and Ron Killings. Gail Kim would win the TNA Knockout Championship in a gauntlet match, and Samoa Joe faced Christian Cage, and Rick and Scott Steiner faced brother Devon and Ray in a tables 2 out of 3 falls match. And that was a mouthful right there, ladies and gentlemen. Where were you for Bound to Glory in 2007? October 14th, 2009 leads us to a sad note, as WWE Hall of Famer Captain Lou Albano would pass away due to a heart attack at the age of 79. Albano was a polarizing figure and a showman in the wrestling industry. During his 42-year career, he guided 15 different tag teams and 3 singles competitors to championship gold within the WWF and WWF. Albano was also recognized as being a part of the mainstream entertainment in the 80s. He was also part of the Rock and Wrestling Connection. He appeared in films and TV shows such as Wise Guys and Miami Vice, and was featured in many of Cyndi Lauper's music videos, such as Girls Just Want to Have Fun. Rest in peace, Lou Albano. 2018 New Japan Pro Wrestling 2018 New Japan Pro Wrestling Rep Pro came together to present Global Wars 2018. Live from London, the main event saw Tomohiro Ishii defeat Miro Suzuki for the Rep Pro British Heavyweight title. The undercard also featured great talent such as Zack Sabre Jr., Timothy Thatcher, Chris Brooks, Rocky Romero, Chris Ridgway, and Will Ospreay. Did you get to see Global Wars 2018? What did you think of it when New Japan Pro Wrestling and Rep Pro came together to bring you such an amazing card? 2019 would see the second night of the 2019 WWE Draft continue on Raw from Denver, Colorado. Tyson Fury and Braun Strowman would sign their contract for the forthcoming match at Crown Jewel. Becky Lynch would face Charlotte Flair, and Seth Rollins would make his way into the Firefly Funhouse. You remember what it was like to see Seth Rollins in the Firefly Funhouse? What a fun night it was to see somebody cross over. October 14th, 2020 brings us another sad note as British wrestling star Ryan Smile would pass away at the age of 31. The Brigham-born wrestler lost his battle with mental health. Rest in peace, Ryan Smile. 2020 AEW Dynamite brought us the first anniversary show where Jon Moxley would retain the World Heavyweight title against Lance Archer. Hikaru Shida would defend the women's title against Big Swole. Cody Rhodes and Orange Cassidy fought to a time limit draw for the TNT Championship, and MJF teased joining the Inner Circle as he arranged a steak dinner for the following week with Chris Jericho, which would eventually be dubbed the Dinner Debonair Skit. Do you remember Dynamite's first anniversary show? Can you believe it's been 5 years now? Do you remember the Dinner Debonair Skit between Chris Jericho and MJF? Now we travel back to October 15th, 1973, where Pedro Morales retained the WWF World Heavyweight title in a Texas death match against Stan Stasiak at a house show in Madison Square Gardens in New York City. How about some ECW history? Yes, 1994, Cactus Jack and Mikey Whipwreck retained the ECW tag titles, and Shane Douglas retained the ECW World Heavyweight title at an ECW house show at the Harrisburg Military Post in Pennsylvania. Also in 1994, Samoa Joe retained the Ring of Honor World Heavyweight title against Rocky Romero at Ring of Honor Gold in Dayton. Also, Ace Steel, CM Punk, and Jimmy Jacobs faced Alex Shelley, Austin Aries, and Jack Evans in a 6-person tag team main event. Have you seen Ring of Honor Gold? 2006, Monday Night Raw, Los Angeles, California. Randy Orton and Edge opened up the show by impersonating their Cyber Sunday opponents, D-Generation X. Triple H faced Orton in the show's main event. Also, Jeff Hardy defended the Intercontinental title against Chris Masters, Shelton Benjamin, and Super Crazy. Do you remember when Edge and Randy Orton showed up pretending to be G-Generation X, when they pretended to be the Heartbreak Kid Shawn Michaels and the Game Triple H? What a legendary moment in wrestling history that was. 2011, the first ever WWE Raw taping from Mexico City took place ahead of the upcoming Vengeance pay-per-view. John Cena and Jim Ross teamed up against Michael Cole and WWE champion Alberto Del Rio. Also, CM Punk with Triple H in his corner faced The Miz. Christian, Cody Rhodes, and Mark Henry took on John Morrison, Randy Orton, and Sheamus. October 16th, 1995, Monday Night Nitro from Albany in New York. The unlikely pairing of Ric Flair and Sting faced Arn Anderson and Brian Pillman in the main event. What a legendary main event when Sting and Ric Flair teamed up to take on Arn Anderson and the late Brian Pillman. 2000, Stone Cold Steve Austin returned to the Joe Louis Arena in Detroit for the go-home edition of WWE Raw for the No Mercy pay-per-view. He was almost run down again by his previous vehicular assailant and upcoming pay-per-view opponent, Rikishi. In addition, number one contender for the WWE Championship, Kurt Angle teamed up with Edge and Christian to face The Rock and the Hardy Boys in the main event. October 16, 2003 was a sad day, as the head of the Hart family and founder of Stampede Wrestling, Stu Hart, would pass away from heart failure in Calgary. Stu Hart is best known to the younger fans as the father of Bret and Owen Hart, and as well as the grandfather to Natalya Neidhart and David Hart Smith. Rest in peace, Stu Hart. October 16, 2004 would see a legendary match between Samoa Joe and CM Punk as they fought to a 1-hour time limit draw for the Ring of Honor World Championship at Joe vs. Punk 2 in Illinois. On the undercard, Alex Shelley defeated Jimmy Jacobs in an I Quit match. Josh Daniels defeated Angel Dust, Matt Sydal, and Trent Acid in a 4-corner survival match. Generation Next, Jack Evans and Roderick Strong faced the Rottweilers, Homicide and Rocky Romero, and Chad Collier and Nigel McGuinness with Ricky Steamboat in their corner defeated B.J. Whitmore and Dan Maff with Mick Foley in their corner. What a legendary match it turned out to be as Samoa Joe and CM Punk fought to a 1-hour time limit draw at Joe vs. Punk 2. 2011, it's TNA Bound for Glory in Philadelphia. Kurt Angle retained the TNA World Heavyweight title against Bobby Roode in the main event, and Mr. Anderson and Bully Ray fought in a Falls Count Anywhere Philadelphia street fight. Also, Rod Van Dam faced Jerry Lynn in a Full Metal Mayhem match. Velvet Sky won the TNA Knockouts Championship in a fatal 4-way match, and Sting defeated Hulk Hogan in a match that gave Dixie Carter full control of TNA. Again, if Sting won the match, then the match would be Hulk Hogan's last ever televised wrestling match. It would also be the night that Sting would ask for Hulk Hogan to help him, and we would see the return of babyface Hulk Hogan. 2018, WWE SmackDown Live celebrated its 1000th edition from Washington, D.C., and featured a reunion between all of the members of Evolution. The first seeds were planted here for the eventual WrestleMania 35 match between Triple H and Batista. Also, the New Day defeated Cesaro and Sheamus, then known as The Bar, to win the WWE SmackDown Tag Team Championships. October 17th, 1999, WWE brought us No Mercy from Cleveland, Ohio. In the main event, Triple H successfully defended the WWE Championship against Stone Cold Steve Austin in a highly underrated Anything Goes match. Also, the very first tag team ladder match took place between the Hardy Boys and Edge and Christian for a $1,000 cash prize, and the managerial rights to Terry Runnels. The Hardy Boys emerged victorious in the match that launched both teams into stardom and reinvented the ladder match in wrestling history. The Rock faced the British Bulldog, and Jeff Jarrett appeared in his final match in the WWE at the time against Chyna in a Good Housekeeping match for the Intercontinental Championship, in which Chyna became the very first woman to win a men's title in WWE. Rest in peace, Chyna. 2016, Goldberg would make his return to WWE for the first time in 12 years at Raw in Denver, Colorado. The former WCW champion accepted Brock Lesnar's challenge to a match which eventually took place at Survivor Series. You remember the match between Goldberg and Brock Lesnar at Survivor Series? What an amazing match it turned out to be. 2018, an NXT taping at Full Sail University, Orlando, Florida. Matt Riddle would make his WWE NXT in-ring debut as he would fight in a match against Luke Menzies, who would later become known as Ridge Holland. Of course, Matt Riddle would come out victorious in this match. October 18th, we're going to travel back to 1993 on a live edition of WWE Monday Night Raw from Poughkeepsie, New York. Randy Savage confronted Crush over the allegations that Savage betrayed his friend by convincing him to compete against then WWE champion Yokozuna a few months prior. At the conclusion of this summit, when it appeared that the pair had reconciled, Crush would savagely attack Savage, setting up their feud and their eventual match at WrestleMania 10 in Madison Square Garden. Do you remember this historical moment? Do you remember Crush versus the Macho Man at WrestleMania 10? Do you remember Crush taking on Yokozuna and Yokozuna hitting him with the bonsai multiple times? What an amazing night to go back and relive. 1997, Little Guido and Tracy Smothers defeated John Kronus and New Jack to become the new ECW Tag Team Champions. 2020, New Japan Pro Wrestling G1 Climax Tournament took place, and Kota Ibushi would win the New Japan Pro Wrestling G1 Climax and become the first wrestler to win back-to-back tournaments since Hiroshi Tenzan in 2004. Were you there the night that Kota Ibushi would win back-to-back G1 Climaxes? Moving forward to October 19th. 2003, WWE No Mercy took place in Baltimore, Maryland. The main event saw Brock Lesnar retain his WWE title against The Undertaker in a biker chain match. Also on the card, Vince McMahon defeated his daughter, Stephanie McMahon, in an I Quit match. Interestingly, intergender matches were barred under Maryland State Athletic Commission rules, but WWE paid the fine in advance and went ahead with the match. It would also be a sad day on October 19, 2003, when it was announced that Road Warrior Hawk had passed away from heart failure in Indian Rocks Beach in Florida. October 19, 2004 saw the first ever WWE Taboo Tuesday, where Chris Jericho would lose the Intercontinental title to Shelton Benjamin because he did not know who he was facing until the fans picked the winner. The main event saw Triple H retain the World Heavyweight title against his friend and longtime foe, Shawn Michaels, in what was considered a classic match. The fan vote determined Michaels as the challenger ahead of Edge and Chris Benoit. The bout was made more interesting due to an injury Michaels suffered at the Raw the night before. This played into the match and worked around his leg injury. Other notable matches, Benoit and Edge defeated the Law of Resistance for the World Tag Titles. During the match, Edge would turn heel due to his anger at being rejected by the fans, again in the main event fan voting. Eric Bischoff was forced to have his head shaved after a loss to his storyline nephew, Eugene. And finally, October 19, 2008, Hulk Hogan Celebrity Championship Wrestling. Yes, Hulk Hogan's Celebrity Championship Wrestling reality show debuted on CMT in the USA. The opening episode included appearances from Bill Goldberg, Rod Van Dam, and of course, Brutus the Barber Beefcake. Contestants included Butterbean, Dustin Diamond, Aaron Murphy, and eventually winner Dennis Rodman. Ladies and gentlemen, we want to thank you for joining us for This Week in Wrestling History for October 13th to October 19th. We hope you're enjoying this. Make sure you give this video a thumbs up. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button. Tell us what you thought about This Week in Wrestling History. Do you have some great moments from This Week in Wrestling History? Drop your comments in the comments below. Join in the discussion. Let's have a conversation. And thank you for tuning in and staying with me as we work through this. This is The Value of Wrestling. It's This Week in Wrestling History. I'm your host, The Big Time. I will see you next week.